Hey, where are the drinks? How many times do I have to tell you a dropout like you to show some initiative? Get the coffee ready, you useless piece of trash.
My boss is yelling at me in front of our clients. He's been targeting me as a dropout, but does he really need to be so cruel about it?
Come on! Even some of your limited education should be able to handle getting coffee.
Trevor shoves me roughly, his expensive suit brushing against my shoulder as he deliberately bumps into me. The leather of his designer shoes squeaks against the polished floor as he turns to face me, a sneer twisting his features. Something inside me snaps. I'm sorry, but I won't be getting any coffee, because... I pause, my heart pounding in my chest as I prepare to reveal a shocking truth that will make him lose everything. But before I tell you what happens next, let me take you back to where it all began. My name is Alexander Dawn. I grew up in a middle-class family of 3. Just me and my parents, in a modest 2-story house on the outskirts of Seattle. Though we lived in the city for my father's work as an electrical engineer, we'd visit my grandparents' farmhouse in Montana during summer and winter breaks. Those visits became the highlight of my childhood years. One of my favorite things there was the night sky. My grandfather, a retired physics teacher, would set up his old telescope on the wooden deck and teach me about constellations. He'd point out Orion's belt, the Big Dipper, and tell me stories about ancient astronomers who mapped the heavens. In the city, light pollution blocked out most stars, leaving only a handful visible on the clearest nights. But at my grandparents' place, their wooden deck offered a perfect view of countless stars blanketing the dark sky. I'd spend hours counting them until my neck hurt the next day. Sometimes, my grandmother would bring out hot chocolate and homemade cookies, wrapping me in a warm blanket as I gazed upward in wonder. You know, Alex, she'd say, her voice gentle and warm like a summer breeze. Some people see stars just as dots of light, but I could tell you see stories up there. She was right. Each pinpoint of light held a mystery I wanted to solve. After those visits, I begged to return during every break. When home in Seattle, I practically lived at the local planetarium. The staff began recognizing me, especially Mr. Johnson, the elderly astronomer who ran the weekend shows. He had me stay after hours sometimes, explaining the mechanics of the projector and sharing his vast knowledge of celestial bodies. My fascination with the star's beauty and the mysteries of infinite space grew endless. I wanted to see them up close and uncover the universe's secrets. In 6th grade, when asked to write about my dream job, I didn't hesitate. I want to be an astronaut. The other kids laughed. They wanted to be YouTubers or professional gamers. But I was serious. I studied hard to make it happen. College, training, more training. I knew I had a long road ahead. Mrs. Patterson, my science teacher, recognized my passion. She started giving me advanced reading materials and stayed after school to help me with complex math problems. You've got the spark, Alex, she'd tell me. Don't let anyone dim it. I maintained top grades through middle school, earning straight A's in science and math. My teachers were confident I'd get into the high school of my choice, Seattle Science Academy, known for its robust STEM program and high rate of graduates attending prestigious universities. True to their predictions, I got accepted and set my sights on MIT's aerospace engineering program. My parents were thrilled, already planning how to help fund my college education. Mom even took on extra shifts at the hospital where she worked as a nurse. But life had other plans. In my freshman year of high school, during a routine physical required for the school's track team, they found something wrong with my liver. The doctor's face grew serious as he looked at my blood test results, and within days, I was undergoing more extensive testing. By the time they caught it, it was life-threatening. Emergency hospitalization, emergency surgery. I survived, but remained hospitalized. Just when it seemed I was recovering, I could barely stand, leading to more tests and surgeries. With no quick recovery in sight and unable to attend classes, I had to drop out. The recovery dragged on while my classmates graduated. I remained in my hospital bed, watching seasons change through my window. The doctor said it was a rare condition with no clear treatment, warning that even if I recovered, strenuous physical activity would be impossible. In other words, my astronaut dreams were over. I tried studying in the hospital, hoping to eventually attend college, but that dream was crushed too. The medications made it hard to concentrate, and frequent procedures interrupted any attempt at consistent study. My textbooks gathered dust on the bedside table as I drifted in and out of consciousness. Depression set in, affecting my physical health. I barely ate, spending days staring blatantly out the window. The stars I once loved seemed to mock me now, twinkling beyond my reach. My parents worried, watching helplessly as their once vibrant son withdrew into himself. Then came a turning point. Worried about my mental state, my parents got permission from the doctors for a day trip to the local observatory. Though I feared it would painfully remind me of my lost dreams, seeing something I loved brought unexpected joy. The familiar smell of old books and metal, the quiet hum of equipment, it felt like coming home. I explored observation records, examined models of stars I'd only seen in books, and peered through telescopes. The staff were kind, explaining their current research projects and showing me their latest data. Looking through the high-powered telescope, emotions overwhelmed me. Wonder at seeing Saturn's rings so clearly, grief over my lost dreams, frustration with my illness. Before I knew it, I was crying. A nearby female staff member rushed over, concern evident in her green eyes. "Are you alright?" she asked softly. In my emotional state, I found myself telling her everything. My childhood dreams, the illness, the crushing reality that I'd never become an astronaut. She listened patiently, offering tissues and understanding nods. After I finished, she told me something that would change my life. There were as many space-related jobs as there were stars. Sure, I might not go to space, but there was so much to discover from Earth. So many ways to study the universe from here. "Think about it," she said, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "The first person to calculate the sun's orbit never left Earth. The first person to understand how stars work never went to space. Sometimes, the greatest discoveries happen right here on the ground." That's when it hit me. I didn't need to be an astronaut to study space. My narrow vision suddenly expanded, like a telescope revealing new galaxies. I promised her I'd research space-related careers when I got back to the hospital. She smiled, and I noticed her name tag read Emma. She explained she was working part-time there while studying. Though she loved space, her grades weren't good enough for her dream school. She was building knowledge while studying to improve. "Seeing you face your setback with such courage makes me want to work harder," she said. "Sometimes we inspire others without even knowing it." I never imagined I could motivate someone else. It made me determined to become someone worthy of that impact. Decades later, I visited the headquarters of America's leading space development company in Tokyo. After years working at various branch offices across Japan, I was finally back at HQ. I had achieved my goal working in space exploration while remaining earthbound, though the path here had been far from straight. My illness was managed now. I only needed checkups twice a year. Still, my constitution never fully recovered, and even short trips could be exhausting. That's why I transferred to branch offices in areas with better air quality. But now that my health had stabilized, I was back. The Tokyo office buzzed with energy, teams of engineers and scientists working on cutting-edge projects. Yet keeping up with everyone else remained challenging. I tried to work within my limits, but sometimes my enthusiasm got the better of me, forcing me to leave early when my health acted up. The concerned looks from colleagues made me feel guilty, though they never complained. I planned to take it easy until I adjusted to headquarters, thinking overexertion would only cause trouble. But one Tuesday morning, Director Foster's secretary called me in. In the sleek conference room on the 35th floor, Trevor Foster sat with his legs crossed, his custom-tailored suit immaculate as always. At 32, he was one of the youngest directors in company history, and he never let anyone forget it.
"Mr. Don,"
he began, his voice dripping with false concern.
"Aren't you slacking off a bit too much? I understand you have health issues, but come on, it's your body. Learn to control it better."
I apologized for his valid point, but Foster just sighed, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair.
"Actually,"
he continued, leaning forward,
"you never show any initiative, Don. It's bringing down department morale. We need you to be more proactive, take the lead. Like everyone helps with moving equipment and general tasks, but you're always glued to your desk. Where's your team spirit? Who do you think you are?"
I'm sorry, but HR approved this arrangement. Due to my condition, I'm exempt from physical labor."
"Aren't you being overdramatic?"
Foster interrupted, his voice sharp.
"You're not a child. You're a grown man, aren't you?"
Foster's derisive laugh echoed off the conference room halls, showing he knew little about my condition. His expensive watch caught the fluorescent light as he gestured dismissively. He joined while I was at the branch offices. An MIT graduate with an impressive academic record, this brilliant young man had quickly risen to director. It was natural he didn't know my background, and I thought I'd help him understand, but...
Even if we overlook that,
he continued, tapping his fingers on the polished table.
Shouldn't you work harder than anyone else to make up for it? Yet you take so many early leaves and days off. How do you explain that?
I'm sorry, I replied quietly. I've had this illness since childhood. It was bad enough to make me drop out of high school. Though I've improved considerably. Not that I'm making excuses. Foster's eyes widened.
Wait, dropped out of high school? So basically a dropout? Huh, how does someone like you even dare to work here?
Suddenly, Foster's tone changed completely. The polite corporate mask slipped away, revealing something uglier beneath. Until now, he'd used polite language, probably because I was older. But learning I was a dropout, his attitude shift showed his true colors.
You do realize this company leads America's space industry, right? And you're here with your illness and lack of stamina. Are you mocking us?
That's not...
If you lack motivation, you can leave,
he snapped.
We only want people willing to work themselves to the bone here. Being older than me, but still just a regular employee. Aren't you ashamed?
Foster flashed a condescending smile before standing up, straightening his tie of manicured fingers. He strode out of the conference room, leaving me alone with my thoughts. From that day on, he treated me with contempt at every opportunity. No slight was too small, no insult too petty. During team meetings, he'd single me out.
Hey, dropout, carry these boxes. All right, you're physically weak. Then at least clean this area. Use that tiny dropout brains of yours, loser.
When new equipment arrived,
we've got state-of-the-art technology coming in. But a dropout probably wouldn't understand how to use it. Better not touch it. We can't risk having someone like you break expensive machinery.
He constantly emphasized my dropout status while making snide remarks, taking every chance to remind others of my inferior education. Some colleagues worried it was workplace harassment and bullying, suggesting I report him to HR. Senior team members who'd known me for years were particularly concerned, but I hesitated to escalate things. I was considering my options when something else caught Foster's attention. Harvard University's Earth and Planetary Science Department announced a groundbreaking initiative. Our company would be supporting their practical training program, offering students hand-on experience with cutting-edge space technology. Apparently, our CEO was friends with several faculty members, and given our technological experience, they wanted their students to learn firsthand. The project was greenlit almost immediately. When they asked which department would handle the program, Foster volunteered before anyone else could speak up. During the executive meeting, he gave an impassioned speech about international collaboration and educational excellence.
As an MIT graduate myself,
he proclaimed proudly,
I understand the importance of bridging academic theory with practical application. With my 6 months of study abroad, experience, and fluent English, I believe I'm uniquely qualified to lead this project.
His campaign worked, and he got approved as a project leader. The smugness radiating from him was almost visible as he strutted around the office, delegating tasks and micromanaging every detail. Things progressed quickly, and several Harvard representatives scheduled a visit to headquarters. Foster spent weeks preparing, ensuring everything would be perfect for what he saw as his moment to shine. That morning, the entire office was tense as Foster, dressed in his finest suit, confidently led the representatives into the conference room. The project team members, including myself, stood to welcome him.
Everyone,
Foster announced in practiced English.
These are Dr. Jonathan Carter and Miss Emma Bell from Harvard's Earth and Planetary Science Department.
Following Foster were a distinguished older gentleman with salt and pepper hair and wire-rimmed glasses, and a blonde woman with long hair tied back in a professional bun. My heart skipped a beat as I recognized her, though years had passed since our last meeting. Foster showed them to their seats with exaggerated courtesy. Then, catching my eye, he pointed at the empty table with a sneer.
Hey, Don, where are the drinks? What an honor for a dropout to even be in this room, and you're slacking off? How many times do I have to tell someone of your limited education to show initiative? Get the coffee now.
True, I had forgotten the drinks in the tense atmosphere, but his tone was unnecessary. He probably assumed our guest couldn't understand Japanese, emboldening him to show his worst side. Seriously, how long would he fixate on education levels? Fed up with his attitude, I silently approached Foster, straightening my shoulders despite my fatigue. If low education means someone has to serve coffee, I said calmly, then none of our employees could do it, including me.
What? You're a dropout, aren't you?
Foster's face reddened with anger. Ignoring him, I extended my hand to Jonathan with a warm smile. Jonathan, welcome. Great to have you in America.
Alex!
Jonathan's face lit up as he grasped my hand firmly.
Wonderful to finally meet you in person. I'm Jonathan, just made associate professor last year. Emma's told me all about you.
Oh, really, Emma? His eyes sparkled with mischief. Of course, you're showing me around America after all. Hey now, I'm not a tour guide. I laughed, falling easily into our old pattern of friendly banter. Everyone in the conference room stared wide-eyed at our exchange. Their shocked expressions would have been comical if the situation weren't so serious. They were clearly stunned by how casually I was chatting with our distinguished visitors.
Hey, Don.
Foster's voice trembled slightly.
What's going on here? Why are you so friendly with them?
Foster looked between us, demanding an explanation, his previous confidence crumbling. Emma was my senior, I explained simply, from university.
University? What nonsense! You're a dropout!
Well, I did drop out of high school, I replied, maintaining my calm demeanor. I never said that was my final education level.
What? Then why didn't you correct me?
Because you're the type to judge people by their degrees, Mr. Foster. I figured your treatment of me would get worse out of jealousy.
Jealousy?
Foster spat the word like it was poison. Yes, since my final degree is from Harvard. Foster stood there speechless, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. The silence in the room was deafening. As he struggled to process this information, I offered a brief explanation to everyone present. My condition had worsened during my teen years, requiring specialized organ transplant surgery from a renowned specialist in Boston. After moving there with my parents, we found a donor, but post-surgery complications meant extended hospitalization in Boston. The doctors at Massachusetts General Hospital became like a second family during my lengthy recovery. That's when I had my fateful second meeting with Emma at the Boston Observatory. She was volunteering there while pursuing her studies, and her eyes lit up with recognition when she saw me. Thanks to her continuing encouragement, my passion for space studies reignited. Seeing me study diligently while hospitalized, my parents made a bold decision. They enrolled me in an American high school that offered flexible remote learning options. By then, I could at least walk independently, if not return to Seattle. My English had improved significantly during hospitalization, thanks to daily conversations with doctors, nurses, and other patients. I set my sights on college again, this time at Harvard. The dream seemed almost impossible, but impossible had become a relative turn in my life. Of course, I continued looking directly at Foster. Conversational English wasn't enough for Harvard. Starting later than everyone else put me at a disadvantage, but I refused to give up on my dreams again. Through determination and persistence, spending countless hours studying between medical treatments, I got accepted into Harvard's Earth and Planetary Science program. The acceptance letter arrived on my 20th birthday, the best gift I could have imagined. Surprisingly, Emma was there as a senior when I entered as a freshman. She was equally shocked to see me, her eyes welling up with tears when I walked into the department orientation. I knew you'd make it, she had whispered, pulling me into a careful hug. I just knew it. After our observatory encounter years before, Emma had found her own motivation, studied harder than ever, and made it to Harvard herself. We quickly bonded over being each other's inspiration, spending countless hours in the library together, discussing theories and sharing dreams. After graduation, she stayed on as a lecturer while pursuing her research in planetary atmospheres. We kept in touch occasionally through emails and conference calls, and when we unexpectedly ended up working together on this project, I was thrilled. After hearing this explanation, Foster looked like he couldn't process the information, his face cycling through various shades of red and white. But truth is truth, and no amount of denial could change it.
Don't get cocky,
he finally sputtered, his voice cracking.
This doesn't change the fact that you're lazy and unmotivated. Someone like you should stick to serving coffee. Get to it.
Weren't you the one saying low education means serving coffee? I reminded him gently.
Shut up! Don't twist my words. What does twist words mean?
Jonathan asked suddenly, his tone innocent but his eyes sharp.
Well...
Foster stammered. That's when Foster finally realized something crucial. Both Twist's words and his earlier comments, our former guest had understood every single word of Japanese he's spoken.
You understand Japanese?
Foster's voice was barely a whisper now, his face ashen. Yes, Emma replied with a sweet smile that didn't reach her eyes. We love Japan. We love Japan, so we study the language extensively. That's why we understood your condescending words to Alex earlier.
Well, he's so capable, I tend to rely on him too much.
Foster attempted to backpedal.
That's called making excuses, right?
Jonathan asked, adjusting his glasses.
That's not...
Alex, Emma interrupted, turning to me. Why is he so obsessed with serving coffee? Well... I briefly explained how Foster viewed coffee serving as menial work, how he tried forcing it on me as a dropout, and the chain of events that led to his discriminatory behavior. With each word, Foster seemed to shrink smaller and smaller in his expensive suit. They turned to Foster, their expressions a mix of disbelief and disappointment.
You look down on people because they're dropouts?
Jonathan's voice was heavy with disapproval.
There are plenty of successful people who've never finished school. Did you know Thomas Edison only had 3 months of formal education?
Knowing about his health condition, you still can't understand? Emma added, her usually gentle voice sharp with anger. What a narrow-minded person!
A MIT graduate who hurts others versus someone who couldn't finish school, but works hard. You think the former is more admirable?
Jonathan shook his head slowly. How did someone like you become a leader? Does this company determine job performance by degrees? Emma's question cut straight to the heart of the matter.
Well...
Bombarded with questions, Foster could only sweat and remain silent, his earlier arrogance completely deflated. Jonathan exchanged a long look with Emma, then turned to greet the other team members warmly. After a few moments of pleasant conversation, he asked me to show them around the facility. Originally, Foster was supposed to give a presentation and facility tour, but Emma pulled me aside and told a nearby colleague, Make sure he's gone when we return, before gently tugging me towards the door. When we returned an hour later from a comprehensive tour of our research facilities, Foster had indeed disappeared. One of my colleagues mentioned that he made a hurried excuse about taking an early lunch, practically running from the building. Later that day, Jonathan spoke privately with our CEO, and Foster was swiftly removed from the program. The news spread through the office like wildfire. Foster stormed into the CEO's office the next morning, his face red with indignation.
This is completely unfair,
he protested.
You can't remove me based on external pressure. I'm the most qualified person for this position.
But Jonathan's reasoning was sound and professionally delivered. They didn't want to work with someone who judged people solely by their degrees, especially given the potential negative influence on students. No one in senior management took Foster's side, particularly after hearing about his months of discriminatory behavior. Harboring deep resentment toward me and the Harvard team, Foster didn't go quietly. He attempted to sabotage the program by hiding crucial documents and accidentally deleting important files. However, he was caught red-handed by the IT department while attempting to access restricted project data, and after an internal review, was fired for violating multiple company policies.
Damn it! Firing an MIT graduate! You'll regret this!
He shouted as security escorted him from the building. As he passed my desk, I responded to his outburst with calm conviction. The only one who will have regrets is you, Mr. Foster. How long will you cling to MIT's name? Working in this industry, you should know better. A university is just a name. There are countless people worldwide who graduated from schools more prestigious than MIT. As numerous as the stars above, take a hard look at your own insignificance and reflect on your actions. Foster stood frozen in the lobby, speechless, his box of personal belongings clutched to his chest. Maybe I went too far, but as long as he relied on MIT's reputation as a crutch, he never grew as a person or a professional. Sometimes, harsh truths are necessary for growth. I later heard through industry connections that Foster was working part-time at a space museum in Osaka. Foster, the proud MIT graduate, doing part-time work? The news surprised everyone who knew him. But what surprised them even more was that when they had no full-time position available, he reportedly begged the interviewer,
I'll do anything. Please, let me work here. I just want to stay connected to space research.
I guess even Foster truly loved space beneath all his pretense and arrogance. That revelation softened my feelings towards him somewhat. Perhaps hitting rock bottom would help him rediscover his genuine passion for the field. I hope he uses his industry knowledge and starts fresh, this time building his career on actual merit rather than academic credentials. Meanwhile, after Foster left, Our department underwent a remarkable transformation. The atmosphere became more relaxed and efficient, with everyone working at their own pace while achieving better results. Team members felt comfortable sharing ideas without fear of judgment, and our project success rates improved significantly. When the Harvard program finally started, I was honored to be chosen as the lead speaker addressing the visiting students. The role felt like coming full circle, from that discouraged hospital patient to someone who could now inspire others. Over 2 intensive days, we covered facility tours, hands-on experiences with our latest technology, and comprehensive discussions about American space development. I concluded by sharing my personal vision of making space accessible to everyone, regardless of the physical limitations or background. During the final Q&A session, a young student with eager eyes asked about my current goal. To develop systems that let people with physical limitations reach space, I answered proudly. Just because someone can't become an astronaut doesn't mean they can't contribute to space exploration. Everyone deserves a chance to reach for the stars, even if it's in their own unique way. The program was an overwhelming success. Harvard not only requested to continue in the following years, but also proposed expanding its scope. They wanted to include more students and possibly extend the duration of their stay. When Jonathan and Emma were leaving, several of us went to see them off at the airport. The terminal was busy with travelers, but Emma's bright smile stood out in the crowd. "Thanks to you both, I feel motivated to keep going," I said, helping them with their luggage. "See you next year." Emma smiled back, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "I should thank you. I enjoyed Japan and seeing you again after all this time." "You know what?" Emma lowered her voice conspiratorially, pulling me aside while Jonathan checked their flight status. "I volunteered for this program specifically because I knew you'd be here." "What?" The revelation caught me off guard. Emma giggled, her laugh still as musical as I remembered from her college days. Then her expression turned serious, her green eyes meeting mine with intensity. "Remember when we first met at the observatory? You gave me strength to pursue my dreams. I want to show you who I've become. Hey, we'll keep in touch, right? Maybe even daily?" Before I could respond, Emma pulled me closer for a selfie, her perfume bringing back memories of late-night study sessions and shared dreams. The screen showed my surprised face next to her beaming one. "Can I show my friends a photo of my boyfriend?" she asked playfully, but her eyes held a question. "Only if we take a better one," I replied, my heart racing despite my calm exterior. I'd always admired her for helping me find my path when I was lost. Now, life had brought us together again, this time with the possibility of something more. That began a long-distance relationship. Despite being separated by an ocean, we never felt closer. Space, work, hobbies, we never run out of things to discuss in our daily calls and messages. Most often, we express our gratitude to each other. "You're the reason who I am today." Sometimes you unknowingly become someone's motivation, their reason to keep trying. I learned to live honestly and straightforwardly because of her influence, just as she found her determination through helping me. Now, looking up at the night sky from my apartment balcony, watching the stars twinkle against the dark canvas, I wonder if Emma's seeing the same sky. Then I remember, it's daytime where she is, and laughed at myself. Some things never change, but others evolve in ways we never expect, just like the universe itself. Life is full of endless possibilities. You just have to be brave enough to reach for them.